things are never stagnant. The world really does keep moving. And so like there were moments in my life where I felt completely trapped, especially when my dad passed away. I felt like the world was stopped. But then I realized it wasn't.
Welcome back to Love, Life, and Legacy, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate these hyper-sexualized times of ours. And folks, if you've ever wondered what it's like to be a high school in these modern days of ours, in this era of ours, well, look no further. This podcast, we're going to give you a glimpse into their world by way of High Noon High School, a division of High Noon that we have led by Seiji. Seiji is here, and I'm just talking to him about what it's like for these high schoolers. What are they going through? And it's really helpful if you are a high schooler, or if you are a parent of high schoolers, or if you're the kind of elder brother or sister figure who wants to help high schoolers. This is really, really relevant. And otherwise, it's just generally a good podcast episode. So listen, regardless of which demographic you're in. But if you are a parent of a high schooler or a high schooler, earmark this, listen to this a bunch of times. It's a banger. Let's get into it. All right, everybody, welcome. We're doing a bit of a social experiment today. I'm meeting up with Seiji, and we're talking about high schoolers, but little did we know that we both wore hoodies so that we could be relatable. High school, what's up, guys?
Hoodies
What's up,
on.
guys? We're just like you. We just wanted to chat, chill. We just wanted to chill with you sick bros and dudettes. Just kidding.
Now use some Gen Z lingo.
It's like when they go to high school and it's like older people just trying to be like, guys, we're just like you, Anyway, Seiji, I already feel the age gap between me and you, let alone high schoolers. This is why we needed a High Noon High School, because at its very worst, it was me running around talking to high schoolers, and it's been a while. How long has it been since you were in high school?
I graduated 2018, 8 years.
How does that feel saying that?
Kind of crazy. Time flies. I don't feel that much older. I don't feel 8 years out of high school. Is that weird?
It's not weird for me. It's probably weird for a high schooler because everybody's old who's
Yeah.
not their age. But like for me, I've been out of high school longer than how old I was when I was in high school when I graduated, if you know what I'm saying. It's scary, right?
Yeah.
I don't
Time
even remember a
flies.
lot of faces. I don't even know what I did all day. That's how long it was. I don't remember most of my teachers.
Yeah, we're
Just
unks now.
generic faces. But this is, for everybody who doesn't know, you've already been on the podcast. You're High Noon High School guy. You are the leader of the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. Do you have any girls yet in high school?
No.
High Noon High School? Okay.
No girls yet, but once
Starting
we find
with the guys.
Starting with the guys. Once we have a female mentor who's qualified.
Shout
figure it
out.
out.
Shout out, everybody. Let's get them. But you're there. I mean, that was a tough nut to crack. That's why, we found Seiji because he's a super reliable guy. We love when people stick around. You were on Uncle Dave's radar for quite some time. You were being pulled in. Hey, Seiji can do it. And you became our kind of intern. Even though we don't have internships, you became our intern. You were like, oh, Seiji can do it. Seiji can do it. And then you just made so much sense to take care of high schoolers. You have a heart for... Did you do youth ministry before? Did you help?
Was I a leader in youth ministry? Or
yeah, did you help out with youth ministry?
I mean, a little bit. My church history is a little... I grew up in a really small community. I was the youngest kid in that community. It was like 4 families in Cleveland, Ohio. So yeah, there was that. And then and then I went off on GPA. I went off to GPA, and then did 2 years of that, 2 years of CARP in Las Vegas.
Oh, you
I
did?
think yeah. And then with CARP, I think like there was some level of like youth ministry, but at the same time, at least at that time, it was really focused on like witnessing and our own activities. Like going to church was just going to church. It wasn't like getting involved with the youth ministry.
Okay.
Which
you
I wish
were
it
the youth
was.
ministry. Yeah.
And then moved back home, and I moved to Columbus, Ohio. And then that's where I started dabbling a little bit, like just being an older brother figure, but with no real position.
That shows a whole lot about the quality of your soul, my friend. A lot of people at that age don't dabble with youth ministry as a hobby. They dabble with stupid stuff. Drugs. You dabble with saving people's lives. I love it. But now you've been doing High Noon High School for how long?
About a year now. Wow. Just short of a
That's
year.
great. I think in terms of time, in terms of space, like where was I when this happened? And all I remember is walking the streets of Mongolia, talking to you on WhatsApp. That's what I remember.
Mm.
So that was last summer. It must have happened in the summer, like between spring and summer last year. Nice. And so, yeah, we want to help people to understand a little bit like what these guys are going through, because for now it's guys. And again, we're building this kind of organically based on a
Mhm.
need, and men and women, guys and girls, young men, women, all are struggling with porn. Let's get that out on the table for sure. The prevalence of females normalizing porn is just like increasing by the day, especially in the young world. It's just kind of normal, becoming mainstream, it becoming like a career option for a lot of
Yeah.
young ladies. I saw a notification. This young lady like had a celebration, like a coming out, like when I'm 18, I'm gonna do OnlyFans, and like that was a
It's
part of her
crazy.
rite of passage, coming of age. So it's the world that they live in, but we're starting with the most pressing issue, which is young men. Equally important in terms of human species. Let's get that out of the way. But the urge and the urgency is far more present in young men because the repercussions we're seeing in our church. Let's start there. Young men are showing up for the blessing. At least 2 to 1. Every single country,
Yeah.
there's 2 to 1 female candidates to young men. Something's going on there with their confidence, with their clarity, right? So that's obviously urgent, but also just if you look at the state of young men, depression, suicide, anxiety, it's pretty gnarly. So
Yeah.
I just want to kind of unpack some stuff with you to help understand, like for anybody who is in high school, to understand maybe what they're going through. And if you are in high school and you're listening to this, give us a message and say, did we miss anything, right? But also for anybody older to understand your younger brothers and younger sisters, and any parents, for God's sakes, please try to understand your kids. That you're their lifeline. We are always guiding back. People think that High Noon sometimes is trying to create our own church, our own cult, or something like that. We are always primarily trying to guide people back to their family. So husbands back to their wives, wives back to their husbands, parents back to their kids, kids back to their parents. That's always the end game. But sometimes things are so funky within the family that we just try to do as much as we can to help them work through stuff so that they can functionally go back to their family and work on stuff rather than just fight with their family. So please understand that's why we're having this conversation, and Seiji is going to help us unpack because he's meeting with these people and he's having some nice deep conversations with them.
Mm.
So, well, first of all, broadly speaking, Seiji, have you noticed any themes within these young guys that you're taking care of? Like anything that keeps on coming up, these recurring issues?
Yeah, for sure. Biggest theme, top 3. Top 3 themes. One is dating and crushes, what to do with
Okay.
these emotions. They kind of like already they want to live the values of what they hear from their parents, actually. It's like, I'm not interested, but I have this crush and I don't know what to do with it. Or
Mm.
like my friends are dating and I don't know, I don't know what to say, or I'm afraid to talk about it with my parents, or I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
they just don't know what to do. And basically the default is like, how do I push it away? How do I press it down and seal it away? Like that's like yeah, they're asking like how to do that. And then number 3 is actually like more theological, kind of like what does it mean to live with sin? And then this sin being the shadows that they're holding on to, whether it's like porn, masturbation,
Mm.
or attractions, or like just like negative thoughts. Those are usually the 3 main
So
things
what
that
was the
comes up.
second one? The first one was about crushes and dating. Second one was about the emotions of like
Yeah.
suppression. And what exactly could we just explain that a little bit more?
Okay. Yeah. So crushes, and then well, what did I say? Like, yeah, the emotions of what to do and who to talk to with, like their. I guess 1 and 2 is kind of related, like
Well,
dating and
one is
crushes.
like dating and crushes as a theme, and then two is like the fallout or the repercussions of being in this culture and how to deal with
Yeah.
being a human being with desire where it doesn't always necessarily fit.
Yeah. Yeah. So crushes and dating, whether like what to do with it, and then did I just
Yeah.
have a brain fart? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We
Okay.
all fart in our brains. So, well, that's, I mean, really clear. I didn't prepare you for that question. I think when I saw how quickly and how succinctly you answered, it seemed like it was staged, but that's
Yeah. I
super
think.
clear.
Yeah. I think there's something I wanted to like. If there's like a point I wanted to make, but when those things comes up, it's crushes and dating. It's about, oh my gosh, I'm totally lost.
Well, the other one was the fallout of the emotions, and that kinda stuff, and then the third one
Yeah,
was what?
that's it. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Second one was what to do with like negative emotions, negative thinking,
Okay,
like the inner world.
okay.
And then number three was
This is like a
sins.
geriatric
Sins.
podcast. You and I are just like, who am I?
It's
Where
really
am
hot
I?"
right now.
You nervous, buddy? You hiding something?
Maybe.
So sin, like how to live with shadows. That yeah. I mean, this is amazing. This is already amazing for any parents out there. For God's sakes, please pray about this. Please try to understand this. That one of the most difficult things is knowing, like being exposed to truth and real stuff, because then you have the burden of knowing, right? And there's a responsibility that comes with that. I think that High Noon has been exposed to a lot of truths about the reality of young people today that kind of parents are not so blissfully aware of, meaning like they think High Noon in some places, it's always the minority, but some parents in this world are like, don't say certain things, like don't talk about pornography, because if you say the word, then my kids will know about pornography and then they'll become addicted and then they'll leave the church and then they'll live a life of sin. And it's like, I don't think understand how this works or who your kids are or the world that they live in, because
Yeah.
it's unavoidable at this point. And even if they don't watch it, information is really helpful so that they can kind of deal with it when it comes, because it's coming, because porn seeks us out, right? So know how, like, they're not blind, these kids. They're in schools, they're seeing stuff, they're hearing stuff, they're watching stuff, and they're not just protected. They have natural desires, natural
Right.
inclinations that are being intertwined with a broken society that's offering them this circus, endless, array of choices. And here they are making these massively important decisions by themselves, right?
So when I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking about like how much content there is to consume. And then I was thinking of just like the developmental stage of their brains, right? Like the
Yeah.
prefrontal cortex. I don't remember how many times I heard that prefrontal cortex when I was in high school. Your prefrontal cortex is still developing. And so like if you know, or if you don't know, the prefrontal cortex is the center for impulse control. And
Mm.
it's still developing and it's like being matured in this age. And it takes a long time to mature. It's one of the last parts of the brain to like fully develop. And
Yeah.
the really scary thing, and I think like what makes all this so like hard is like because of right the ease and like the impulsiveness of cell phone usage or acting out to porn and masturbation.
Mm.
It like it doesn't help the development for that impulse control, and it's something that I mean just like in a very physical like our body's natural development, it just doesn't help, and it leads to actually more kind of like a confusion, overwhelm of like just content out there. We so much information, we don't even know what's
Mm.
true or not anymore, or like
Yep.
how advanced AI is getting, and it's like getting harder to tell if something's AI or not. I've been fooled multiple times. Well, that's crazy.
Yeah, I'm actually AI right now, Seiji. I sent my bot. I'm quite busy. Yeah, that's
Amazing.
so what you're saying
Yeah.
is they're these young developing people and they're infusing all sorts of misinformation, wrong information into their development. So they're developing off, like crooked. If you're building a building, it's to certain specifications and you're following a plan and a blueprint. And so you need nice vertical lines and all that in order for the building to be strong and intact. But
Yeah.
as a person, and if you don't have that vertical kind of blueprint and following a plan, then you also are off kilter. And that looks like anxiety, confusion, stress, all sorts of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
just what it
what I
is.
mean, these guys that you're dealing with, do they have parents that are trying to help, or are their parents just kind of letting them into the jungle by themselves? Because I was giving a talk in Bolivia and we were close to the jungle, like we weren't so far away. And I gave them this analogy and I got AI, talking of AI, to make this image so it's crystal clear. It's a little boy who is on the precipice of walking into a jungle by himself. I was like, would you let this boy, your son, walk into the jungle by themselves? Yes or no? And they're like, no, because they have a visceral feeling of what the jungle actually is. Unlike
Hmm.
an American, we don't know what a jungle is, right? They're like, no way. And then I flipped it and changed the jungle to a digital jungle. And it's like, would you let your kids go into this jungle by themselves? And they're like, oh, and I think it was a very confronting question because they could see, yes, they have been letting their kids go to the jungle every day by themselves. So
Mhm.
are you experiencing that the kids are being given devices without any boundaries and that's the problem? Or do they have confusing boundaries? Or have you noticed?
Yeah, it's really interesting. The last call that I had with my high schoolers, my group, is that we talked about internet safety, and we talked about one of the more specific things that happens on the internet, which is sextortion. We
Mm,
talked about that. That was the first time that they heard about that, and there was an episode that we did about that, and
yeah.
that was like what a year ago, and that was the first time I heard about sextortion and just
Oh,
like the
real?
fact
Yeah.
that it exists. And so I thought it's really important to educate them, and they had never talked about that before or like heard about that from their parents. Yeah, I mean, in regards to like what level of like on their own they are, and each guy is different. But what I'm really amazed with is that these are all really great kids,
Yeah.
and I can see that their parents are actually making a lot of effort. There's this one student, he's 15, and his mom is really actually involved with him and his like recovery from porn and masturbation. Apparently, like she talks to him quite regularly about it, but it's not like talking to. It's like to him, not asking or like kind of a give and take. It's just kind of like
Yeah.
lecturing a little bit, or just like
Classic.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like across the board. That's just like this is bad. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
penis is holy, so just don't touch it. Okay. And then they're still doing it anyways. So the point is like, yeah, they're being told what not to do. And this is purity 2.0, right? Being told what not to do, but they're not being educated on what to do to be safe or
Yeah.
to take care of themselves or to actually find fulfillment
Yeah. Yeah.
with themselves. So yeah,
And so
it's
that's
very
kind
much
of
a
what
pattern.
what you're building is helping them to figure out what they can do instead of
Yeah.
just stressing out all the time, yeah? Is that so I wanted to know about kind of if you look at concepts and you were talking about reality, like it's hard to tell what's real anymore. There's that with AI, but there's also just about what is true about anything, like
Yeah.
we can see that in politics and in the media, just like what everything's a story, nothing's true, everything's subjective. But in the realm of culture, especially sexuality, relationships, romance, that's definitely a war that's been waged for quite some time, and jury's still out. But the overwhelming majority of society is pushing people towards the direction of sexual selfishness and self-gratification and this kind of stuff, not towards something lasting, something true, something fundamentally core, first principles related. It's just like have fun, otherwise you're lame, whatever. And so that over time has looked different throughout generations. Like my generation in high school looked definitely different than yours. And then now that these kids are in high school, have you noticed like the things that they believe about dating or romance or sex or something like that that is an even greater perversion of the truth than what you had? Because like if you can imagine like porn being kind of like a bubble, the bubble is growing and growing and growing. Eventually it's gonna burst. You can't get any more pornified as a humanity, but as it expands, people's minds also conform to their environment. So have you noticed that
Mhm.
stuff that they believe is even further from healthy maybe than what you were led to believe as a high schooler?
Okay. Um, I wouldn't say it's too much further. I do relate a lot to what they're saying. Um, yeah, like one of the common feelings that felt was like, at least in high school, we would talk about sex sometimes, and I would naturally be really curious because I never talked about it at home.
Mm.
And um, there was like, yeah, I remember a conversation I had with some of my friends at high school where it's like, they were like talking about how they tried things in porn and it felt really good, or like they were trying things like that. Or like there was like a joke that they were making in regards to some type of porn, and then I was left out of the joke because I didn't know about it, and so like I went home that night and I watched that type of porn, like, and then I'm like, well, I don't even know what's funny about it, but now I'm in on it, and that was like a
Sure.
sense of like belonging, I guess, or like
Sure.
not feeling left out. And that's something that they've shared too. It's like, well, if I'm not part of the joke, it feels like I'm not really like
I
caught
am the
up and I'm
joke.
just not.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So, and in the same way, at least in my experience in high school, it was like a interesting period of time for me. But my senior year of high school, I started kind of like just being more aware, just like kind of eavesdropping or like trying to get as much tea as possible from like the conversations that are happening around me. And I remember hearing like this.
Quick pause. If you're serious about your future blessing, but not really preparing for it, then this is your moment. Don't do it alone, guys. Go to highnoon.org.
States of which these relationships were going, where kids were cheating on each other and having multiple relationships at the same time and finding out and
Oh,
doing revenge sex and revenge like and yeah, like that was something I hadn't witnessed, but like I had grown aware of. Like this was not something high schoolers should be going through.
sure.
And that was like my experience in high school. And so when I'm hearing like their experience in high school, it's more on the culture of like being cool by getting a lot of women, or like that's how you
Mhm.
know you're cool. And so, oh, do you pull chicks, like that kind of thing.
Pull
And
chicks.
you pull, yeah. Are you pulling
Ah,
them? No, like the aura and the riz. Are you
sounds like
rizzing them?
cows. Are you sounds like what you do with a cow. I see.
So yeah, like being cool is like what kind of aura you can establish with and getting the attention of girls. So whether if it's like a pornified culture, right? Like women like getting laid is how you know you're popular or how you know you're cool, and so like that's like the culture that they're in. And I wouldn't say it's too much further from the culture that I had witnessed,
Yeah.
but definitely like that's kind of the trend that it's going to.
Interesting.
I can feel that they don't want to worry their parents because, like, on one side, they don't want to partake in that culture. At least with the kids that I'm talking to, they're like, "How do I get rid of this crush that I have?" Or like really just yeah. I mean, they're talking about how they're going back to porn masturbation. They want to stop, and lots of questions about dating. Yeah, overall, I think that's like the general trend, especially with like getting the attention of women.
Yeah, that's definitely a time tested and true part of adolescence is attracting the
Yeah,
opposite sex, right? I mean,
yeah,
globally though, that trend seems to be dipping because kids are getting into less relationships with real people and like in Japan, places like that, just completely opting out of the human experience altogether, right?
yeah,
So in a sense, obviously we don't it's not a great idea, but it's nice to know that people are still attempting to be in relationships with each other. If the
yeah,
trend was like all of humanity is just deciding to not join forces and be in a relationship with human beings, like that would be cataclysmic. But this is also not great. Not saying, anyway, the lesser of two evils, something like that. So, what about things like they're dealing with all this stuff? They're dealing with peer pressure. They're dealing with
hmm
natural desires, but not knowing how to deal with them. What's healthy, what's not. So, what do you see that actually helps kids of this age? What brings them some sort of respite or peace or solace or some sort of, I don't know, tempering of their anxieties?
talking. It's really amazing. But like my group, they love talking. Like with the nature of this, the newness of High Noon High School, I'm trying a lot of different things. And so with this group, I was trying different formats for the group calls. And yeah, it's ranged from like me just giving them a talk. It's ranged from like just open discussion, keeping it on topic. We've read a Hundoke and then like gone through like each point and talked about it, or like read Hundoke, paused, and then like talked about it and then kept going kind of thing,
Mm,
relating it to their own life. Yeah. And by far, they love the discussions. Like,
the most? Sure.
yeah, like never, this is going to sound bad on my end, but it's like, there hasn't been a talk where I gave them, they're like, CG, that was the best talk. Like,
My
you know,
life has
but
changed.
but after the discussion, they're like, "So, Seiji, this call was goated. This was the best call that we've had. I had such a good
Mm,
time." So, like, okay, I guess discussions are the way to go. But one of my favorite things about the discussions is like asking questions and asking them the questions that really gets them thinking. Because like I've realized that just people in general say things, and there's like really a lot of common words that have like really specific meanings to each person. It's really like, oh, today was a hard day. And there's so much more like detail, like what does hard mean? What did they do because of that hard? Or
Mhm.
and when I can ask those questions, that's when they like get thinking and open up a lot. It's really cool. And yeah, especially recently, like the direction is to grow their awareness. And so like I'm just asking them like, wow, that's what's really hard about that, or like what's when they're really honest, like how does that feel to be honest, right? I'm not asking like, oh, they're really proud of you to be honest, or that's really good. I do say that, but I think like what I'm really most curious about is how does it feel to be honest, and get them to really experience that and be aware of that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, this goes against, I think, what a lot of people would assume is young guys don't like to talk, right? And this is the thing about sex is even I have husbands that I'm taking care of that don't talk about sex with their wife. They have experiences, some good, some bad, but they don't talk about it. And I keep on emphasizing how important it is and how overwhelmingly positive it ends up being. Maybe it's complicated in the beginning or messy or whatever, but when you get good at the art of talking about sex, it's a joyful experience. And this is a huge part of what sex is meant to be, is experienced with other people. That's why porn masturbation, such a ridiculous version of the actual thing, because you're all alone and you're just validating nothing, right? You're just kind of stuck in a chasm of your own making. But talking about it is so liberating, right? For all ages. So, parents, for you guys to talk about it with each other as a foundation to then talk about it with your kids. But your kids want to talk about it. That's the thing. Everybody thinks, oh, it's hard. Like you said, it's hard to talk to my kids about sex. No, it's just new. New
Yeah.
things feel hard because they're new. So you have to spend extra bandwidth thinking about your word choice and how to navigate certain feelings that come up. And it gets easier the more you practice and it becomes more automatic. And then it transitions into more joy. And so, like the old adage is that guys don't like to talk about their feelings. That's nonsense. Guys, a lot of
Mm.
times just are told that. And so they believe it, or nobody talks to them about their feelings. But everybody likes to talk about themselves, their thoughts,
Wow.
their feelings, their experiences. And it's really, really important. So, parents, hint, hint, your kids actually would love to talk about sex with you eventually if you can practice it.
Eventually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
eventually. Eventually. At first, everything's awkward. Everybody's like, "Oh,
Exactly.
I don't like it because it's hard." So's playing an instrument. So's learning how to do any skill in the beginning. It's like painfully you feel crappy at it, but the more you care about it, the more you practice and you just become naturally gifted at that thing. It's the same with conversations. It's really nice to hear.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so are they in the have you noticed that it's getting easier for them to open up? Like in the beginning, was it a little bit tough to get them to open up, or were they just primed and ready to go?
No, I was in the beginning. It was definitely hard in the beginning. Harder, like I would have to ask a lot of questions to get them to like kind of open up, like to just give me a little bit more salt, just a little bit more. I would have to really pry for that. But like, yeah, I would start with how is your sexual integrity, or like yeah, I would start like really easy, just how was this week? Oh, it was hard. What was hard about it? And eventually, it would start leading to like, actually I had multiple slip ups this week, or like I'm feeling really bad about that, or but now like I don't have to remind them. It's like, how was this week? It was actually kind of hard, or it was better than last week. This week I had like two slip, like it would just naturally come up. And still I'm still trying to get them to talk about like kind of the emotional, like what do you feel like when that happens, or like did you think about contacting someone, like what was stopping you, or like finding support, or like trying to nudging them in right directions, I think. But
Mm,
overall it's been easier. Just the thing is, like especially with parents and what you were mentioning, I just wanted to say that most of the times when parents are talking to me, it's like a lecture, or it's like
yep.
a lesson, or it's like just really like short lived. And I think one of the really most amazing things, amazing not in the sense of like good and amazing, but like amazing is like kind of it was a revelation for me, was for me to look back on my experience and like coming home from school. My parents would ask, Seiji, how's your day? Good. And then right into my room. And I just like didn't
Yep.
really want to talk with them, or like I didn't know what to say. And
Yep.
then because like oftentimes I would say something and then it would just kind of the conversation would be taken over by my parents. And it's something that I just didn't really like. And unfortunately, it's the same thing with these kids too. They actually, yeah, like some of them have tried to like open up about like something that's actually like their passion and interest. And what ends up happening is the parents kind of just start lecturing them, or kind of makes it about like, just takes over the conversation. And yeah, I can really tell like that's actually like, okay, I don't really want to like. I think the message that they get from that, like why it happens, is like I don't want to talk about myself so much. It's because I have nothing to say. It's kind of like the belief that starts to develop when
Yeah.
they're stuck listening all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Or this feels like work. I don't like this. I don't want
If
this.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's the association rather than, working through creating. That's the whole point of School of Love, is not to have a conversation about sex, is to create a culture where the topic of sex is enjoyable within the family. Right. And that's, again, that's culture. What you are doing, Seiji, is you're creating a culture where people are associating positive feelings with the conversation about working through sexual integrity. That's what any parent can get if they put in the sweat equity of trying and trying and trying, getting better,
yeah.
right? So it sounds like, I mean, you mentioned this before, and you mentioned this just now about, hey, Seiji, how you doing? Good, peace, gone. It's the quality of your questions. This is one thing I'm really observing with painful clarity, is that with AI is so like the ceiling's gone. There's no ceiling anymore. It's what we can accomplish as humanity. The only X factor in determining whether we can use it for our own benefit to do great things or not is the quality of our questions and asking it to do stuff. You can have amazing photos, videos, writing, anything, but most people don't even know what they want. So they don't know how to ask good questions. They ask general questions, get general answers. Oh, this is stupid. The same thing is true of humanity and family. Is the quality of your questions determine how much you actually want to know about that person? And when you ask somebody a very precise question about them, yes, it can be confronting, but it can also be revelatory. Like you said, it can like reveal so much to you as the question asker, but also so much to them. Because I was doing this the other day with somebody, and they're like, oh my God, I don't even know. I've never even had that thought in my head before. This is all so new. And like that's a gift that you can give, is to help somebody to understand themselves by asking them good questions. That's really good parenting. And I was thinking, it's like a fire. These guys are like young men who are, and this applies to ladies too, who are like becoming little balls of flames. Like they're becoming a force, a life force. And by you lecturing them or kind of making them feel bad for having certain inclinations or whatever, is essentially just putting water on that fire. It really quells that fire. But fire's not dangerous if it's guided well. Yes, fire can create forest fires. I live in Denver. Lots of forest. It's been a dry year. They're anticipating a lot of devastating forest fires this year. But also fire do amazing things. It can forge metal, it can cook food, it can do all sorts, and that's the human experience as well. And so they need to be guided through conversation and good questions, not through you telling them how to live their life. That will always dampen their fire, and they'll associate you with limiting them rather than like lifting them up, right?
Mm.
And you're not meant to be their life coach, you're their parent, but guiding them, a guidance figure for sure is a part of the job description of a parent. And so to that end, I wanted to ask two very specific questions, one from both ends of the spectrum. For parents, what's something that you'd really love parents of high schoolers or soon to be high schoolers to know about their kids? Like what is like really a pressing thing that you think would help them navigate this journey as being a parent of a high schooler?
Mm. I want to be really, I wouldn't say careful. I don't know if careful is the best word. Like, I think parents, like you're doing your best, like you're doing what you know how to do. But I think like me as a non-parent, to tell you a little bit about how teenagers are, because of I'm interacting with them, and it's just times are changing like like seriously fast. It's really important. Is I think the most powerful ways you can teach your kids is I think is the scariest thing, is to let them come to their own conclusions based on on the questions that you're asking them. So if you
Mm.
know, like, because that's when like real ownership happens. But it's like the scariest thing, because like what if they don't come to the right conclusion? But if you're the one who's deciding what's right and wrong, then you must be God, but we're not, right? And so like I think the original mind is it's alive in each and every one of us. That's why I believe. And the
Mhm.
more we try to like actually awaken that part of us and that like our conscience and the part that's really connected to God,
Mm.
when we listen and we like value and connect, like
Mhm.
that's that's like where the most actually godly inspiration happens. You know, naturally I think of one of the testimonies that's written in the book, the Core of the Universe.
Mhm.
It was a parent who is watching TV and then they're surfing through channels, and then her son is with, I think I'm assuming it's a mother, but their son is with her on the like watching TV, and then they stop on this channel, and this channel has kind of like a half naked rock star who's got what the mother describes like the porn look in her eyes and is like looking at the camera seductively, half naked, and then the mother pauses, turns off the TV, pauses again, and then instead of like freaking out or like saying anything, she asks her child, like, what did you think about that?
Mm.
Right? Like, what did you think? And her son like proceeds to respond by saying, I think she's really confused and she doesn't know who she is. It's
Mm.
like, and this is like an 11-year-old boy from what I'm assuming from reading it. And it's just
Uh-huh.
this is what happens when we let them talk and when we
Yeah.
actually like instigate, oh, what do you think about it? And I can imagine that now their conversations around sex, attraction, blessing, it's just so natural. You know,
Yeah.
like it's been built up from that type of relationship. And so like building a relationship that your child can feel comfortable enough to disagree with you or to kind of to talk back and forth and to actually come to a really amazing conclusion to
Mm.
work together on that, I think is where the best inspirations come from.
I love that. It sounds a lot like trees, to be honest. Like most parents parent their kids like people create bonsai trees. You know, bonsai trees are just molded and shaped through
Yeah, yeah,
pressure
I
and
see.
manipulation, but they end up being really small and crooked and weird, right? Whereas in the forest, trees are motivated by the sun to grow taller, to face the
Mm,
sun. And it's like, it's a positive reinforcement where it's not that they don't need your guidance, but they don't need your telling them what to do and molding them and shaping them every step of the way. They need to be compelled towards the light, not forced towards the light. That's not how it works. And
yeah.
that rings true. It rings true because yeah, of course they're lost and they need some sort of framework, but not imposed upon them. And through asking good questions and having like a robust relationship, they'll naturally feel more inclined to follow what you do, and what you say kind of is true to you if it's through love and through dynamic conversations, not through you coercing them or cajoling them into
Yeah.
being who you want them to be.
It's very
Yeah.
much creating the environment for them
Mm.
to come to the best conclusion possible.
Yeah.
But it might not be your conclusion. And I think that's a really scary thing.
Yep. That's God, right? That's
Yeah.
principle 101 is like God had to give us free will, and it's the biggest risk of all. Yeah. And so the other question was from the other end is for high schoolers. If you could talk to them and say something, impart some sort of wisdom to help them on their journey. Do you have anything?
Yeah. For aesthetic purposes, I'm talking to my side monitor. Wish I talked to the camera.
Yeah, that's
But
fine. It's- you look wise.
yeah, I've been doing a lot of reels recently, so like this is like how I'm filming with my videos. But one of the things that I've understood most, at least like also with the Japanese worldwide community, is like the a standard and ideal for the blessing and for relationships is really big and it's really unclear. When we talk about an ideal family, and in our own families, sometimes we don't see that. We see conflict
Sometimes.
a
Yeah.
lot of the time, right?
Yeah.
We don't see that happening. And it feels like maybe is the blessing the right answer? Or is like my family doomed? Or like I'm really scared that my family isn't like living the ideal. What are we doing wrong?
Hmm.
And, you know, I recently like I'm thinking about God's heart in the way that like God wants everybody to be happy. And when love, I think you were the one who taught me this, Andrew, low key. It's like love is not always a pleasant feeling.
Hmm.
That actually it's love is the most like when you love somebody and they get sick, that's very painful. And when they're gone, it's like, you know, it's excruciating. But that only happens when you can love somebody. that comes with the highest highs as well.
Mm.
And so, like, when it comes to like seeing this double side of like my family is not the ideal family that I wish, like my original heart, like my original mind desires and is longing for, but
Mhm.
we see, but we, we see these shortcomings in our families. But to know that like that's what you want an ideal, and you want to pursue that ideal. I think naturally, as like that tree who's seeking the light and you're seeking the highest possible value, like we'll will reach higher and higher levels.
Mm.
That the blessings, like ideal, what I'm finding it to be is that it's like not perfect in this moment, that there's never fighting, but like things will get better and they get better, and it's never things are never stagnant. The world really does keep moving. And so like there were moments in my life where I felt completely trapped, especially when my dad passed away. I felt like the world was stopped, but then I realized it wasn't. And yeah, I basically, like, things just they can't stay the way they are. And because we have original minds, and because we have hearts, and we the desire to feel and to give love, things will get better and better. But the amount of responsibility we can take, it can either really fertilize that tree and make it spring forward like a bamboo, or it can be really halted, because if we're staying stagnant,
Mm.
we have to create that environment for ourselves. Yeah, I think it's
Just
very
be
real.
open. Be open.
Be open. If I were to simplify everything I said, because I think there's a lot going on, a lot, but we see this internal conflict. We see this ideal that we're saying that we're fighting for is not being lived
Yeah.
out in our families.
Sure.
It's not because, anyway, there's always hope that the family can get better and that you can get better. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
There's hope. And
Uh,
as long as you put the work in, it can come really fast. There's hope. I think that's the most that I want to say.
Yeah.
Most that I
Yeah.
want to say. That's everything I
Absolutely.
want to say.
I appreciate that. I mean, a lot of people hold our movement's first attempt at being great and not being perfect at our first attempt at it as being a fail, rather than this is an iterative process, right? I definitely do see much more solid blessings from the people who are going to the blessing now, because they're doing it with much more intentionality. We've learned a lot from the mistakes of the past, right? The matching process itself is being refined. And so to compare a first attempt of anything, this is what people do online, right? Is like, I'm not good at something right now at my first attempt versus somebody who's been doing it for years. So I'm just going to quit, instead of like going through the process of becoming great. It's iterative, it takes time. Same is true of relationships. And if you compare, yes, our movement has these high ideals and we have not lived up to them, but we're getting better, versus society has no real clear strategy or answer. And they're doing great at that, which is not having any strategy or just having chaos, right? So it's like comparing a failed attempt at a high ideal versus executing perfectly on chaos, which is what society's doing. It's definitely worth considering trying to meet people who are doing better at practicing this ideal and contributing to that. It's a much better strategy for sure than just giving up because we didn't nail it on the first try.
Exactly.
But
Never give up.
yeah, that's
And
great.
yeah, your investments are never wasted. I think that's a
Mm.
huge lesson that I've learned throughout my life. The investments you put in now, never wasted, ever.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks, buddy. It was nice. I can definitely see we need to check in with you more often to glean insights from that world. It's a world that people have a lot of opinions about and very little information about. So yeah, we want to check in as you go on this journey of growing High Noon High School, the individuals there within, but also the size and the impact of the ministry, or the we don't really have a name for these things yet. We got to work on that. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming on, and we'll have you on. We here at High Noon Incorporated will have you back on in the near future to do a part 3.
Royal we. Yes.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
A strong marriage doesn't start at the blessing. It starts right now in how you live, how you grow, and who you surround yourself with. If you've been passive, unsure, or just hoping things will work out in your future blessing, this is your chance to change that. to prepare with purpose, to walk with others who are taking this seriously. If that's the kind of foundation you want in your future, guys, check us out. Join our community at highnoon.org. Totally free. We will see you there.